Good morning, everyone. Thanks to everyone for coming in this important meeting of the multi-stakeholder task team on an enabling environment for civil society.
Busan was a turning point for civil society and a breakthrough in global development cooperation, with a reaffirmation of civil societies as independent development actors in our own right, a commitment to an enabling environment for our work, and linking the standards set out in international human rights agreements and conditions that enable civil society to maximize our contribution to development. Busan set an important benchmark in establishing the vital role of civil society and its autonomy. Mexico must build on the gains of Busan and not take a step backwards. The CSO Partnership for Development Effectiveness overall assessment of progress in the 2 years after Busan commitments were made, there is lack of political will to implement the overall agenda, and progress is undeniably slow. In fact, what the evidence shows is regression, disenabling conditions, and a flurry of regulatory instruments to silence and weaken civil society.
Permettez-moi tout d'abord de rappeler le rôle majeur de la société civile comme partenaire incontournable du développement et de la gouvernance. En effet, la société civile a un rôle déterminant pour la consolidation du processus démocratique et du développement, mais aussi un rôle de subsidiarité pour répondre aux besoins des populations. À ce titre, nous pensons au Mali que la société civile doit développer un partenariat fécond avec le gouvernement et ses partenaires à travers une participation active. Le Mali offre des exemples d'innovation et d'importants enseignements sur les façons de favoriser la coordination et la concertation entre les acteurs du développement. Par exemple, les objectifs de la rencontre tripartite visent à renforcer la dynamique partenariale entre les acteurs du développement en vue de créer un véritable espace d'échange d'informations et de dialogue.
As we all know, how important is the role of civil societies, who are one of the essential pillars for democracy. In Slovakia, in the 90s, we were lagging behind in our integration objectives. We wanted to join the European Union. It's exactly the role of the civil society who managed to mobilize our society, who managed to really get the entire nation interested in these political processes and in the problems, to start a nationwide discussions about this. And this, combined with the reforms and the efforts that was implemented by our government, helped us to turn from a net assistance recipient into a donor country in less than 10 years. So my final remark is that the more conducive and fair environment for civil society is developed, the better prospects for democratic transition and development can be reached. So inclusiveness is a must here.
And we see important links between an enabling environment for civil society and sustainable development. A number of states are introducing laws and regulations that undermine civil society's independence, restrict access to foreign funding, limit organizations' activities and ability to organize, or impose onerous registration or reporting requirements. Conversely, a better enabling environment for CSOs means that they and their partners can design and implement more effective, better targeted programs or services to citizens.
I don't need to tell you how important the role of civil society is in eradicating poverty, both in terms of service delivery as well as in lobby and advocacy. So I'm also not going to advocate the importance of CSO and make the point that it's important to include civil society in everything you do, that it's important to support civil society, because you all, I guess, will agree with that. I think I made some remarks on how private sector, public sector and NGOs need to work together. Again, let me stress the point that was so eloquently made by Civicus. This is to get better results, but also to protect the people that stand up for their rights. We need to be able to organize our own countervailing power, and we need to force ourselves to listen to that. I mean, that is also about enabling space for civil society.
I'm really happy to be here, and Civicus is really happy to be involved in the task team because I'm new to these debates, but when I look at the Busan Agreement and the global partnership, I see this commitment to an enabling environment as arguably one of the more interesting and tangible outcomes from the global partnership process. If I were to put money on an area where we could potentially make a huge difference, it would be this on the global partnership. And this is not to say there are lots of other interesting discussions going to be had over the next 48 hours, but this is the one that's both about the means and the ends of development in one. Because enabling civil society, or creating the enabling environment for civil society to thrive, will allow civil society to take its rightful role as a development actor, but it's a good in itself, because a free and vibrant civil society is part of the good society. From our work, I wanted to just make 4 observations, all of which happen to start with M, about what needs to happen now. I think the first M is around measurement. The holy grail for those of us who work in this area is trying to understand what exactly the enabling environment is and how to compare conditions in a country like Canada with those in a country like Samoa. And that's going to be a very difficult task, but we're not going to make progress in this area unless we know how to measure. The second M is around monitoring, that we need better intelligence about what's going on in terms of the enabling environment. The third M is around mobilization, that we're only going to be able to transform these global debates into local action if we can mobilize local civil society, or indeed local societies, around this notion of an enabling environment, that it's a fundamental civic right of all of us to be able to assemble, organize, mobilize. And the final M is around making these commitments meaningful.
I think the global platform is important because it is actually a multi-stakeholder forum to talk about norms, and therefore there is much more ownership coming out of that process. But now, and we have already been doing so, but now I think going forward, we need to translate these norms into processes at the country level where similar multi-stakeholder groupings, engagements, governments and civil society, private sector, media, coming together to look at the challenges for civil society organizations as an effective development actor in the country context.